folks, in honor of my 40th birthday today, we are going to debut a new segment on the show officially. This is Dealer's Choice. In Dealer's Choice, we dive into my extensive archives from over 20 years of comic book collecting, pick out a single issue, and just talk about it. The one we're going to talk about today has tremendous sentimental value to me, but it's also just objectively a great comic book, I think, and it's somewhat timely given something that comes out next month. This is Batman 608, the first chapter of Batman Hush. This issue came out in the fall of 2002. It is written by Jeff Loeb, drawn by Jim Lee, inked by Scott Williams, and colored by Alex Sinclair. And of course, because I'm notoriously cheap, I'm going to complain about the price tag. It is $2.25. The most recent issue of Batman, $4.99. Thanks, inflation. You know, in some ways, I think I can argue that this issue actually changed my life, because I do believe it is the first new monthly comic book, monthly single issue that I ever picked up. So this issue really made me a Wednesday warrior, somebody who picks up new comic books every week. At this point, in the fall of 2002, I had pretty much strictly been buying graphic novels and trade paperback collections via my local bookstore. Mostly Batman stuff, if I'm being honest. And I'm pretty sure I heard about this issue via DCComics.com or like the online comic book community, which I was just starting to dip my toe into. Didn't really know who Jeff Loeb or Jim Lee were, but I was really attracted to the art. I just knew that the art looked really dynamic, really epic, had a cool feel to it. So I went into my local comic shop, Amazing Fantasy Books and Comics in Tinley Park, Illinois, and I picked it up. Here's what I saw. Right off the bat, the cover has that epic, dynamic, cool feel to it. Not exactly a practical pose in terms of someone swinging through the city. Like, I've never seen a trapeze artist throw a kick like that, for instance, but who cares? For some reason, it's cool that you can see the bottom of Batman's shoe. I don't know, maybe that gives the sense that we're seeing this character from a vantage point that we normally wouldn't. I don't know why it works, it just does. So in this issue, Batman is trying to save the child of a rich family from Killer Croc in the sewers of Gotham City. There's a ransom involved, there's like a briefcase with a bunch of money, and after Batman successfully saves the child, Catwoman steals the briefcase, Batman gives chase, and someone mysteriously cuts the bat rope, so he takes a really bad fall. What really impresses me looking back on this issue 20 plus years later is how fully formed this artistic team's vision of Batman and his world seems to be. Like, they've not only got their Batman down, but they've got like the look and the feel and the shadows and the shading and the coloring of everything. It looks like a fully formed Gotham City, which makes you want to read more and explore the city more. I love this page, Batman emerging from the shadows. Note that this version of Batman under Jim Lee has some size to him, has some bulk to him. I would argue, and do argue, that you don't always want to draw Superman like a competition bodybuilder, like a shredded guy, but, I mean, with Batman, it kind of makes sense. He's got to work out, and thus he would have some muscle size to him. This is the largest and I think the most monstrous I had ever seen Killer Croc drawn up to this point. If you go back up to that period in time, I feel like artists had largely drawn Croc as just a scaly-skinned, sewer-dwelling man who sometimes had a tail. But this was the most I'd ever seen Croc drawn like a mutated crocodile monster, like with the big jaw. This art, I think, set the character on the path to becoming what he eventually became in the Arkham games. Our author here, Jeff Loeb, is one of my favorite Batman writers of all time, and I've said this before about him, and it's evident here. He can milk an ellipses better than just about any writer I've ever seen when it comes to his writing of Batman. An ellipses, of course, being 3 periods. It indicates a pause. In that sense, Loeb is really good at making Batman feel contemplative, and that's a quality that feels very natural for a detective character, much less the world's greatest detective. So while we don't see the Hush character in this issue does kick off the Hush storyline. A story which really made it feel, between Loeb's writing and the art we get here, like anything could happen in the pages of Batman. Like nothing was safe, nothing was too sacred. And I'm not going to spoil the story for you, but a lot of things did happen. And of course, what's timely about this is that next month, Loeb, Lee, and virtually this entire creative team will be back on Batman for the first time in more than 20 years to do Batman Hush 2. Now, I confess I don't have super high expectations for Batman Hush 2, given what Loeb has delivered in the other big Batman sequel he came back to do, Batman The Last Halloween. But if nothing else, it will be really cool to see Jim Lee and that whole crew draw Batman stuff again. There's epicness virtually guaranteed there. But, even if Hush 2 does wind up sucking, I owe a lot to the original Hush storyline, and Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee and everybody who worked on these books, and nothing can change that. Hey, you guys want to see some of the retro ads from Batman 608? A lot of video game ads here for some reason. So there's like a 2-page ad in this book for a PlayStation 2 Superman game that I'm pretty sure nobody remembers. And then there's also an ad for a Justice League game based on the cartoon for Game Boy Advance. I think that's the incarnation of Game Boy that was out at that time. And then there's yet another 2-page ad for whatever the latest Sims game was. Effective marketing, I guess?